Hello, it's Zoe, and welcome back to the Mischief Movement podcast, your weekly inspo for people looking for more hell yeah in their life. Consider this your one-way ticket out of midlife mediocrity towards fun and positive impact via playful disruption. Wouldn't you love to wake up and feel like a total badass? How about breaking some rules, throwing two fingers up to society and doing more of the things you love? I'm talking full-on freedom, adventure, and those meaningful connections I know you've been craving. Stop waiting for your amazing life to happen and go get it! I'll be picking the brains of some true game changers and mischief makers so I can share what I find and hopefully inspire you to shake things up, do more of what makes you feel alive, and boldly rebel against the ordinary. I've no idea what I'm doing, to be honest, but I've got a mission and I'm here to start a movement. It's going to be quite the adventure. Care to join me? Okay, here goes.
Shh! In this episode, we're going to talk about sex, fetish, and kink. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but I understand that it's not everybody's thing, or maybe you've got little ones listening in. So if you decide this week's episode is not for you, no hard feelings. If, on the other hand, you're even slightly curious, stay with me as I interview Emily, an illustrator and artist, an active member of the KINK community, a voice for representation, inclusivity, and an active supporter of the LGBTQ+ community. But as usual, the conversation is not all it seems, as Emily shares her experience of coming out as a bisexual teenager, her battle with mental health, and several debilitating illnesses that forced her to rethink her entire career. Hers is a story of self-expression and escapism, freedom and fantasy, and how kink and art have blended together to allow her to live a life that's truly mischievous. Okay, so today I'm joined by Emily from Deadly Desires Kink Art.
Hello.
Would you like to tell everybody who you are and what your mischief is?
Yes, so I am Emily from Deadly Desires Kink Art. Well introduced, thank you very much. I specialise in illustration and painting of fetish and kink, particularly shibari, which is Japanese rope bondage. So I guess I am the ultimate in mischievous. Very naughty. I get to paint naked people all the time, which is a great fun.
So I'm just going to put it out there. Fetish, kink, shibari are all terms that I came across. Some of them I had already heard of, but shibari I'd never heard of until I met you. So would you be able to just clarify the difference between what they all are?
Yeah, so kink and fetish is sexual behaviour that's not vanilla. It's something a little bit different to your standard sex. It's could be role play, could be dressing up, it could be BDSM, which is bondage, discipline, sadomasochism, and also dominant and submission. So it can involve all of that. It could be having a fetish. Kink is like those things, interested in playing with those things, but you don't have to play with those things to still have a nice time when you're having sex. Whereas a fetish is that you have to do those things to be able to get off. Those don't have to be sexual at all. There's lots of people who just enjoy the act itself. It might be spanking or rubbing someone's feet or something like that. They might be with a partner and be thinking of that. So that's like more fetish, whereas kink is like less fussy. And shibari is Japanese rope bondage. It was invented back in the 12th century, I believe, in Japan, as a way of capturing criminals. And so they'd be able to very quickly overpower them, tie them up, off they go. And so it started from there, and then it would be used in torture and can hold you in very uncomfortable positions. And then as time's gone by and there's things like handcuffs now. So yeah, then it came more into erotic play, but also just like visually, it's very beautiful. So it's like visual performances and things like that, and it's all about a connection. Most of shibari isn't sexual. There's no actual sex acts whilst you're doing shibari. And then there's like decorative macrame as well. So shibari is usually holding you into a position that's probably uncomfortable. And decorative macrame is like making dresses out of rope, things like that.
And how did you then develop this into your artwork and your illustrations? How did that come about?
Well, I've been on the scene for a long time. Yeah, I love the scene, I love the community. And as an artist, I can see the representation in kink art specifically, where there's white girls with big chests and small waists in latex, and there's guys who are either dominant or submissive, but they'll be in latex or leather as well. And it's just not a good a representation of the community. It's such one image. So yeah, it's something that I'm really passionate about. And returning to art after so many years has been it was tricky. It's been a tricky path, and yeah, I love what I do, and I love the community that I do it for, which is really special.
What would you like people to know about your story and where you've come from to get to this point of having your own business as an illustrator and an artist?
Yeah, so since I was a kid, I was always into art. At about 8 years old, I decided that I was going to be a fashion designer and I was going to go to Central St Martin's. And so I already knew my life plan when I was 8. But then I had some bad mental health stuff and wasn't able to move away to London to go to uni. So I stayed at uni at a good university that had a really good fashion course. So I did that, and so I studied fashion and then came up to London for my final year and did fashion and costume. I was working doing costume in theatre and music videos and short films, things like that. But living in London, trying to get into costume, you pretty much have to have very wealthy parents who can support you. My one bedroom in Brixton was costing me about £650 a month. So yeah, I had to work full time and then also was trying to do costume, which was just too much. So I had to stick with what was paying me, and I became a manager for Waterstones on Oxford Street, London, which was a really great job at the time. When a new manager came in, unfortunately, I had a mental breakdown and ended up in hospital. And I live opposite where the King's Troop are, which is the horses that do the parades. So I live opposite them, and one morning they came down the road and I could just hear their hooves. And I was lying in bed. It's probably about 3:00 in the afternoon. I was in a really bad way, and I heard the hooves and I was like, I've got to do horses. I was like, right, how do I do horses in London? Having mostly grown up in Plymouth, in the countryside.
Because did you used to ride when you were younger? Was it something that you were kind of coming back to?
Yeah, I always used to ride. I had ponies. So yeah, horses have always been a massive part of my life. In fact, we used to live on an army barracks because I'm a naval brat. And their horses, they had military horses there who we used to go and ride when my sister and I must have been 5 and 3, and they'd put us up on these massive horses. And always been horse crazy. And horses are a really peaceful place for me. So in such a bad time, I was like, that's my sign. I've seen it. I need to get into horses. So I found a horse riding stables in London, Lee Valley Riding Centre, which is an amazing place. And I took up a working people job there and dropped over 10 grand a year in my pay. But money's not everything, and happiness is much more important. So I trained to be a horse riding instructor. Absolutely loved my job, and then I got costochondritis, which is an inflammation of the sternum. And as it inflames, it pushes your ribs apart. And now this is only a fraction that it inflames, maybe a couple of millimeters. But that pushing your ribs apart is the most pain that I've ever been in. So yeah, it was a lot of pain. And that triggered fibromyalgia, which is a chronic illness that causes a lot of pain and fatigue and all sorts of other problems. And then I couldn't go back to horses. And it was a really, really difficult time. Oh, yeah, I'm a little quiet. It was really difficult. And so much had been taken away from me because of my mental health. And I was like, I'm physically fit. I ran around after horses all day. I'm really good at this job. I really love this job. I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. And then that got taken away.
That must have been so difficult.
Yeah, it was crap. Yeah, I couldn't just sit around not doing anything, but I also can't go out doing an awful lot if I get exhausted really quickly and really bad pain. So I thought, right, what can I do at home? My art. So we turned the spare bedroom into a studio and started creating art. Started from a couple of pieces that I did for friends for Christmas, that were like kinky pictures of ladies tied up, and that was just like, well, this is it. This is what I need to do. So yeah, that's how I got to where I am now. It's been lots of twists and turns. It's been very difficult at points, but we're here.
So essentially, you tapped into your creativity to help pick you up when you felt like things had fallen apart.
Absolutely, yeah. It was what I had left, and I feel very fortunate that I have a husband that supports me and was able to do so. I'm very privileged in that, and I know there's not many people who would have that ability. So I've been very, very fortunate, and now that I'm making money, it's a lot easier on him. And hopefully next couple of years he'll be able to take a sabbatical, and I'll support him for a bit.
So can I take that as a sign that business is good right now?
Yeah, business is good. Yeah, it's going well.
I'm really happy to hear that, because I think we're all too used to hearing the story about the struggling artist and being sold this, this myth that if you're creative, you're probably not going to make any money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the same myth that we get told from when we're young, that it's only the people that make it in the creative industry that can make any money out of it.
I mean, I've covered this on a few different episodes. It's just a recurring theme about taking the safe route because everybody sees being creative as really unstable and a hobby. But it's really interesting how you didn't necessarily choose that to start with, but it kind of saved you in a way.
Yeah, very much so. It was there when things were looking really, really bad. And I think just generally not enough is put into the arts, whether that's music or fine art or plays or whatever. It's either you make it or you need to have a proper job, and it's not that way necessarily. You have to work bloody hard, but you don't have to be in the British Museum to make money in the art.
Yeah. I mean, you talked earlier on about how much you love the kink community. Tell me about that. What does it mean to you? What does it represent?
It's kind of a big family, because it's so niche, you tend to know a lot of people on the scene. And when you see them out and about, it's like you've got all your mates there. And it makes you feel more comfortable. It's a way to express yourself. It's escapism. So yeah, it's like giving yourself that little bit of time to step away from the real world, so to say, and live in a bit of a fantasy. So yeah, I just think kind of gives you a deeper connection with people. I hate small talk. I can't cope with small talk. But I know if I meet someone in the kink community, even if we're not talking about kink, we'll be able to have a long conversation that's deep and meaningful and is about things that I care about, because we've already got that kind of understanding that we're both into something naughty, that we don't have to be talking about it to have that connection already. And at the galleries that I've shown at, being there around people who are looking at nude art and erotic art, that's like there's no taboo anymore. So when you're surrounded by paintings of erotic art, like you can talk about anything. So yeah, it really gives you that connection to people that you wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else, really.
It's interesting because you said there you can talk to people on the scene and know that you kind of got things in common, that you kind of can talk about things that you care about. So, I mean, what kind of things do you care about?
Well, horses, representation, LGBT community, my friends and family, got friends who are surgeons, doctors, all sorts. But yeah, you can have a conversation about their usually very important, very difficult jobs.
Do you think that's because it feels like you found somewhere to belong and that other people you talk to feel like they're in a safe place? Is it, you talk about this kind of sense of escapism. Is it that kind of, like relief? Oh, I've found my people. I belong here. I can actually talk to people without feeling like I don't fit in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it takes away your mask,
Which is kind of ironic.
yeah, it is. It's funny that you dress up and you're this different person, and many are in masks, but you get to be yourself more than you get to be anywhere else, because you get to live your fantasies and have people around that are living their fantasies. And so it doesn't matter what background you've come from, color, creed, anything else, age, body image, ability. It doesn't matter, because we're all in the community and we all have that like little sneaky bit of knowledge about each other that maybe their colleagues won't know, their family won't know, their friends won't know, but we all know. And that's kind of, you get that more of an ability to open up to people, not necessarily about your kinks, but about other things in your life that you wouldn't necessarily be able to bring up with your friends, your family, your colleagues. It's almost got a kind of therapeutic part to it that is not necessarily people.
Do you think it's because there's that level of vulnerability there?
I think so. Yeah, I think where you take the chance by going to a club or an event, or maybe you're going to see someone there that you know and you don't want anyone in your life to know about that. But at the same time, they're also there. So so you don't need to feel bad about that, because they're there too. But yeah, I think it gives people a place just to be themselves and explore themselves, and just do something different.
You said earlier that, when you were surrounded in a gallery by all these erotic paintings, you felt like the taboo had gone. But I mean, in mainstream society, what do you think about taboo and talking openly about kink or fetish?
I think there's just this funny, prudish life that we have where sex sells, but we're not allowed to talk about it. And woman's got to look a certain way, but not slutty. And a gay guy's got to look a certain way, else he's not gay enough. And so there's so much expectations that are around sex and what is expected of people. And yet we're not allowed to talk about it, which is just such a crazy juxtaposition that actually maybe if we talk about it, things will be a lot easier for everyone.
Sure.
So yeah, just taking down that barrier that there aren't to be's gets rid of that blindfold, so to speak. And you're allowed to have these conversations.
How did you end up in this environment, in this world? Was it intentional, or did you just kind of fall into it by accident and be like, wow, I found my people?
Yeah, I guess I kind of fell into it. I've always been a goth and was part of the alternative scene, and with like goth and punk, it quickly goes down the sex line, and I went into BDSM and fetish clubs, and dressing up. I've always been like, obviously I did my degree with costume. I've always been a person that dresses up. And I'm actually allergic to latex, so I can't wear any of the latex stuff.
That's so unlucky.
I know, right? So going to events, I've got to take a load of antihistamines. It's such an irritating allergy to have. So yeah, I started going to clubs, but as I say, I've always been more of a dresser upper. My best friend and I will tend to shock people that will be dressed up as like little Lolita girls in like fluffy underskirts and things like that, whilst beating someone and laughing at the top of our voices when they don't do what they're told. So, but yeah, I became a mistress, and it's the type of clubs that I enjoy going to. It's the type of people I enjoy being around. There's the goth and metal scene and the fetish scene, and they're a lot friendlier than they look from the outside.
And how does it make you feel when you're there, when you're with people, and when you're
I guess I just feel like myself, relaxed and comfortable and confident, and I'll always be wearing a fantastic outfit, so I know that I look good. And so I go out feeling good. I'll get lots of comments on what I'm wearing, which obviously is massive confidence based. The whole dressing up is a whole part of what I enjoy about going out to events, is creating this character. Yeah.
How do you think that then impacts on your day-to-day life? Because you talk about it as escapism, but I assume that some of what you experience you can then bring into your day-to-day life. You just mentioned there like feeling confident.
Yeah, very, very much so. That I guess because I have been in the community for so long, and all of my closest friends are in the community, and obviously I work in it, but it's not necessarily escapism for me anymore, but it's escapism for other people. And I really like to be able to facilitate that space for people to have those conversations that you might feel intimidated by, and promote this ability to escape, because people can feel really trapped.
How do you do that?
Just conversations, really, just talking to people. I think the more people talk about it, the more they understand it, and the more they might want to come and try it out. It's something that people find escapism in because they need something out of it. For example, they need to be dominated by someone and let that control away. Usually it's people who have very high-powered jobs. That's a lot of stress. that will be submissive because they need someone just to tell them what to do, because they've got to do all of the telling what to do. So it gives them a chance to just be told what to do. And you can get that from the physical release of pain, masochism, but you don't have to be a masochist to be a submissive. You don't have to get hit to be submissive to someone. And I think that's one of the things that's really misunderstood, is that it's all just people hitting each other. And it's very much not. And you can be masochistic and not be submissive. So yeah, like, you don't have to be one thing or the other. It's very, very fluid. And for people that are finding things in their own life are too much, or they've not got something, you can usually find it in the kink community.
Do you think that it helps you release from what I imagine is your day-to-day life of living with illness? You know, you do suffer from a lot of pain and exhaustion. Is this a way for you to kind of be like, just going to let go of that and be someone else for a while?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't been out properly since I became ill, because it's so much effort and it leaves me in a lot of pain for a lot of time afterwards. I'm actually going out on Friday, which is terrifying. So yeah, it'll be exciting.
It's series 2, and I'm excited to be back partnering with Plight Club again, a brand whose mission is to change the attitude towards vulnerability and to encourage more conversation around it in order to increase real human connection. The vehicle for these conversations is clothing, or connection clothing as it's become known. And connection is one of our core values. So to bring more people together and help you rebel against staying the same, Plight Club are offering a cheeky 10% discount when you use the code MISCHIEF at the checkout. Sustainable, organic and rebellious, of course, Plight Club also uses 50% of their profits to fund proactive suicide prevention in the form of coaching, support and awareness raising, which enables people to understand their emotions and express how they feel constructively. Become a vulnerable with us. For more info on the brand or to buy online, go to plightclub.co.uk or follow on Instagram at plightclubhq. Now, on with the show.
Tell me about being an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community then.
So I've known that I wasn't straight since I was very young. And when I told my mum that I was bi, she told me it was a phase. So that was difficult. I was like, no, mum. But yeah, I think so many people get that reaction or worse reaction. And I do think it's getting better these days. But there's still so many kids killing themselves because they can't come out. And trans people, the rate of suicides in the trans community is ridiculously high, and even higher in the Black trans community. So, it's just terrifying. But we've come so far, and yet there's still people so marginalised within the community. So I like working with different organisations to try and put money where there's support, especially supporting young people in the LGBTQ community. Hi. So just coming back in to talk about charities, as I managed to skirt around that during my interview. So 2 of the main charities that I support are Rainbow Railroad, and they support people fleeing prosecution in their own countries. Some where being LGBTQ plus is just illegal, and some where you can get the death penalty for it. There are 62 countries in the world where it is still illegal to be gay, and you can be punished by up to 25 years in prison or even the death penalty. There's 6 countries where the death penalty is still the punishment. So that is Mauritania, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Yemen, and Brunei. And there's a few more countries where it's kind of a grey area and you could be put to death for who you love. So Rainbow Railroad themselves, it was started in Canada. They are able to find homes for people, they petition to the UN. So they're very vocal about how awful it is to be prosecuting people based on their sexuality. The other charity that is dear to my heart is Gallop, and they are a charity in the UK to support LGBTQ plus people who've experienced abuse and violence. So everything from domestic abuse and hate crime to sexual violence and conversion therapy. They are able to signpost people to resources and publications of how to get support. If you've got a friend or relative who you believe to be in a dangerous situation, you can get in touch with them and find out what you can be doing. So those are the two charities that I'm supporting at the moment. 15% of my profits in June are going to Rainbow Railroad. So yeah, if you want to help at all, it doesn't have to be financial. Obviously, giving donations is brilliant, but being a voice and being an ally for these people is really important. Okay, thanks so much. I just want to make people know that they're okay being them.
Does that come from your own personal experience, do you think?
I think my personal experience definitely had something to do with it. But I think also I grew up around people in the LGBTQ community, and where we grew up in Plymouth was particularly harsh for getting into fights, people picking fights because of your sexual orientation, just being goth. Union Street is like the most dangerous street in the country that's not in London or Birmingham. And it's like Plymouth's such a tiny city compared to so many other places, and can be very dangerous for people who are alternative to the norm. So yeah, we did get a lot of trouble from people. So I guess that's kind of where it stemmed from, like just knowing how awful people can be for something that's none of their business. And doesn't affect their life at all, and they can just be so terrible. And I know that's what frightens a lot of people about coming out, is how not only will their family and friends react, but how's the world going to react? I mean, there's still places in the world that you can get executed for being gay. So we're very fortunate with how far we've got, but there's still further to go.
And how do you use your art and your voice to kind of help the situation? Because I know you're very passionate about this, and I know that you want to help people feel safe, feel seen, feel heard, and feel understood.
Yeah, I guess being able to spark up conversations is what my art does a lot of. I've got a triptych that came out a couple of years ago that was about the kind of transition from born female to trans man. And yeah, so a triptych with the bit of the journey, and it was based on several of my friends who are trans men. So yeah, that was really interesting to do and to put their stories out there. All the models that I work with are real people, and I don't just draw fantasy people from my head or just pictures that I find on the internet. All of my references are from real people, and being able to tell their stories is something that's important to me, and like knowing their stories, but also sharing their stories. So people can look at the art and enjoy the art, but also can take away what it means and what that person's story is. And if they can do it, so can I. And yeah, just in person, I go to markets and sell at markets. Being able to talk to people there is just wonderful. Yeah, learning stories about people is fascinating. And just sometimes people just need to be listened to. That's all they want.
I think sometimes, that's one of the beautiful things about art is that it has that capacity to connect people.
Yes, definitely.
What do you think you would say if someone came up to you and said, I know you're in the kink community, I've never been involved, how do I start? Where do I go from?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So number one, go and research things online. Obviously, some things are better than others, but there's lots of blogs and stuff from people in the community so that you can kind of get the feeling of it. There's an amazing website called kinkacademy.com, which talks a lot about various different kinks, but also safety and consent, which is like the two most important things within kink is safety and consent. And yeah, then we also do what's called a munch, which will be a meetup of people in the kink community, but in a vanilla setting, so in a pub or something like that. And it's just a chance to meet people and get to know people in the community without having feeling like you've got to go to an event and you've got to have all this latex stuff. And yeah, you can find out about munches. There's a website called FetLife, which is FETLIFE.com, which is it's message boards for the kink community. So you will find everything and more on there, things that you never thought could possibly be a kink.
Do you want to give me an example?
Oh, goodness me. Kinks for Russian nesting dolls and being turned into a Russian nesting doll. And there's all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But yeah, you can pop on FetLife and will tell you any munches that are going on in your area. There's also group WhatsApps group WhatsApps, group Zoom meetings. So you can get to know people and you can get to know faces without actually having to ever go to an event. Events themselves are brilliant and they look really exclusive. All the flyers will have these typical, as I said earlier, these white, slim, big boobs, girls in latex on them.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think that's perhaps one of the reasons why it doesn't feel so inclusive.
Yeah.
And I know that that's something that you're trying to change with the art that you're producing, because your illustrations, of all shapes, all sizes, all colours, you are actually portraying a true representation of your community, I think.
Yeah. I had probably one of my kind of most affirming moments that I've had so far was at Erotic Art London last year, which is at the Oxo. So it's over 4 floors, it's 12 galleries of art. And we were having a stall there because I didn't feel ready to be entering my art into the exhibition. And now I'm like, my work was better than a load of stuff in there. So I had a stall there, which was really good, and it was up at the top. So we got to have lots of conversations, which is one of the main things that I want to do is to connect with people and to make sure that I am taking my art in a direction that is is connecting to people, because it's all very well me going, oh well, I want to represent this and that and the other, but if I'm not actually resonating with anyone, then I'm not doing the job properly.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just art for art's sake, is it? It's the
Yeah.
art that you love, but it's also very needed and very sought after by your community.
Yeah, this is experience. A lovely black lady got to our level. We were right up at the top level, and she came running over to our table and said, "Look, it's me!" And she went running back off again, and then brought her friends in and was like, "Look, it's someone that looks like me, and it's not just one person that looks like me. There's lots of people in this art that look like me." For the fact that she'd been through 12 rooms of galleries and hadn't found anyone that represented her. And there was crying and all sorts.
Does it make you feel emotional to think about it?
Yeah, it really does. And it makes me feel like what I'm doing is really needed. It's not just that I've fallen back on art because that's the only thing I could do. It's that I've fallen back on art and it's created this new thing that I need to do, that needs to be in the world. And I'm the person to put it there. So yeah, I think like everything happens for a reason. Things really, really sucked, but I get to do this and show people themselves in a fetish look, and show people that they're sexy and they're desirable without having to be in latex and without having to be white and skinny and able-bodied, and wearing a particular thing or doing a particular thing. And I focus on shibari because shibari doesn't discriminate. You get rope. It can be plus size, it can be teeny tiny size. So you don't have to pick a size and that's it. It can adapt to you and you adapt to it. It gives people moments of meditation. People allow themselves to relax into the rope. And yeah, it's painful, but so many people find this meditation in it where they have been restricted, but it's some people report it as being like a big hug and just a massive intimacy. So yeah, I love shibari because of all these things that it can provide, plus it looks beautiful. It's something I really love doing, and it's people that I really love doing it for. It's about time that people can see themselves as sexy, and yeah, desired, etc. That have probably grown up not being told that, and certainly within imagery, especially with the kink community, it's getting better within kind of other art forms. I mean, slowly but surely, starting to see advertising with different body shapes and different colours. And yeah, it's still far off from where it needs to be, but it's going that way. And kink is so far behind. It's such a kind of presumed aesthetic, and that's not okay.
Mm-hmm. What do you think you would say to your younger self who was in that position of being told, you know, okay, love, you're bi, but it's just a phase, coming from where you are now, having created this amazing world that not only incorporates the things that you love, but also creates connections with other people?
I think I would tell her that it's going to be okay and you will find your people. At that age, I think I was 13 or 14, not necessarily around particularly great people. And a couple of years later, I was, and things started changing, and I was able to find my people, which was good. And I tell her that it's coming, it's on its way. Just keep trucking, and do the things that you love. I also say, by the way, you've got ADHD, and that will make things a lot easier to get diagnosed now. That would definitely be something I'd say to young Emily.
You've really been up against it, haven't you? In terms of facing difficulties and pushing through them.
I think that is probably my my main bit of mischief is that I will not stay down. A lot of things have been thrown at me, and obviously, like, it could be worse. But it has been, and like all things are relative, it has been really difficult, but I've got amazing support network around me, which I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for them. So
what has that late diagnosis in ADHD meant for you? Was it a sigh of relief at thinking, actually, now I understand myself?
Yeah, it was bittersweet, because having, like, understanding so much more about myself, and taking a lot of the shame away, and seeing that actually it's a medical condition that has done this and made me not able to do these things all my life. There's like executive dysfunction and things like that you just go, well, I'm lazy, and everyone else sees it as, oh well, she's just lazy. Being able to see it and go, that's what it is. And I think would have changed a lot if I had been diagnosed when I was younger, I think. And I guess it kind of leaves you almost kind of angry and disappointed that the diagnosis didn't come earlier. And especially for women and girls, they don't get diagnosed because they don't show their hyperactivity the same as boys. Yeah, it's all the daydreaming. Emily would really excel if she applied herself. All the school report cards that came back saying exactly the same thing. Yeah, there's benefits to it. That I would take exams really, really well. Can't do coursework, can't pay attention, but you give me a deadline and I've got to do it in an hour, then I'm really good at that. Things would have been a lot easier to recognise where the behaviour was coming from.
Have you found a way to then sort of either work around it or incorporate that into what you do now?
Well, I've got my Nikki, who's my best friend, but also my colleague, fixer of everything, company coordinator. She does all of the stuff that I cannot do because I can't make my head do it. So she works for me 20 hours a week, and it's amazing. And it's like absolutely the dream to be working together. So having that in place is what makes my life easier within my business, but also within my personal life. So yeah, being able to do that, and we're only able to do that through Access to Work, which is a government work scheme for disabled people. So anyone who is listening who's disabled and wants to cause mischief and create their own company or get back into a workspace that really worked for them, and disability made it really difficult for you, then just talk to Access to Work. Like, yeah, as I say, I couldn't be doing this without the support of Access to Work. And now I've got my best friend working for me, and I'm making money. And by the time our funding runs out, I'll be able to pay her myself anyway, and hopefully be able to pay the people to do finances and stuff that we both hate doing. So yeah, I think I'm very fortunate with that, and that's what helps me work better.
That's amazing just to hear, where you've come from and where it's brought you to now. So what's next for Deadly Desires KINK Art?
So I've just done an exhibition in Seattle, which is Seattle Erotic Art Festival, which is one of the biggest erotic art gallery events in the world, which is really exciting. So I'm just waiting to get my art back from that. I'm applying for EAL, Erotic Art London, again. So I'm applying for the first time this year. So I won't be selling there. I'm not paying for a stall. I am putting my art to say, this is me, and I've got something important to say.
Good for you, lady.
And I'm working on bigger scale. So the current painting that I've got sat in front of me is 1 metre by 1 metre 50. It's going to be a triptych.
Which is for non-arty folk is a series of 3, isn't it?
Series of the 3, yeah. So they're a hetero couple. Well, they appear to be a hetero couple in the painting. They're actually a pan couple. Well, they're a pan polycule, so polyamorous. And it was actually their girlfriend who took the photo. So it's something that the image means more to them because of her involvement in it as well, which is really lovely. But yeah, they present as a hetero couple, and then I'm doing a lesbian couple and a gay couple. Well, lesbian, female and non-binary, and a gay couple as well. So those are going to be the 3 that show like love and connection, and show that nudity doesn't necessarily mean sexual, but it is part of sexuality. Yeah, it's cool. I'm excited about it.
Lovely. Where can people find out more about you?
So I've got a website, www.deadlydesireskinkart.com. I'm also on Instagram, which is deadlydesires_kinkart. And you can email me at info@deadlydesireskinkart.com if you want to know more. That's where to find me.
That's awesome. Emily, it's been fabulous talking to you about so many things today.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Thank you.
No problem.
I hope you loved today's episode and it made you think differently, or perhaps nudged you into changing something in your life that's not working for you. I'd love to give you a shout out right here on the podcast too. So let me know what you think, what you'd like to hear more of, or how you've been inspired by what you've heard. Let's keep in touch over on Instagram @mischiefandhide, or sign up to my newsletter at zoegreenhalf.com. If you're enjoying being part of the Mischief movement, please consider telling a friend or leaving me a review wherever you download your episodes, which will seriously help my mission to inspire and empower more people like us to choose mischief over mediocre. Ciao!
Don't die.
Jesus, can you finish this interview by yourself?